all manifestation comes down to this one thing. And this is something which you really need to pay attention to. Especially if you've been watching a bunch of manifestation videos for a while and you've not really been able to manifest, like it's not really worked for you. This is what it really comes down to. There's only one manifestation technique, method, concept that actually works. And everything else that you see is either a variation of that or a tool that you can use to do that, to use that technique. So when we talk about manifesting, the only thing we're doing, right, literally the only thing we're doing is you're changing your identity from one thing to another. You're shifting or transforming, flipping your identity from where it is now to where you want it to be. That's what you're actually doing. What you think you're doing, which is not quite how it works, but what a lot of you think you're doing is you are sending out a signal to the universe. I want a Lamborghini. I want $1 million. I want to manifest blah, 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 right? Whatever. A big house. And that's what you think you're doing. You think you're manifesting this specific thing. And then just by saying it, without doing anything, without changing anything about who you are, just by saying it to the universe and doing one of these techniques like whisper technique or affirmations or whatever, somehow this stuff is magically just going to appear in your life like overnight. That doesn't work. That's not how it happens. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but that won't happen. The only technique, the only method, the only way of manifesting is really not manifesting at all. What you're doing is you're actually just transforming your identity. You are, and this is why these kind of lines can be a bit blurred, because people think they have this idea of how manifestation works. Like, I will just set my intention, decide on something I want, affirm it, and then it will just appear in my life. What you're really doing is you need to change your identity. You need to, let's say if you want a mansion or a big house, big nice car, okay. Really what you want is then in that case is you want to become a wealthy person. You want to become an abundant person who has a bunch of spare money, who can do these things and buy houses and buy cars and whatever. You want to become that person. So all of your efforts, all of your time should be spent on trying to change your identity, shift your identity to becoming that person. The money and the cars and the houses and the Lamborghini, like that stuff will come. And the way it comes doesn't really matter. Like how it enters your life doesn't really matter. It might be from you shift your identity. This is how it could happen, for example. You shift your identity, you start to become a different person. You start to see and think, you start to see the world differently and think about things differently. And as a result, you notice different opportunities, you make different connections. Through one of those connections, maybe you're offered the opportunity to invest or join a startup. And then that startup gets acquired by a big venture capitalist fund, and now you're a millionaire. Or it could happen another way. Maybe because you are shifting your identity, you start to really believe that you are this different person, this millionaire. You you meet someone in the gym, let's say, and you get talking, blah, 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 and then they mention that they have this company and they're having this fundraiser thing on the weekend, and you sort of because you believe you're a millionaire, right? Because you believe that that's your identity, you start talking and you're confident, it feels natural to you, and they invite you to the fundraiser, and then, it can happen in any number of ways. But the only thing you need to do is to actually change your identity before you get the end results. The end results is the money, the cars, the whatever. Those things won't come until you've changed your identity. And so how do you change your identity? Well, that's why I made this channel, right? That's what I'm going to be showing you on this channel, is the 6 different ways that you can change your identity. And ideally you would approach it from all of 6 of these pillars, 6 of these different methods, these different ways. And I'm not going to break into it too much in this video, but really changing your identity is the big thing here. That's what all manifestation comes down to. Now, once you've done that, once you've started to do that, once you've started to change your identity, then on top of that, you can build in those different things. You can do your affirmations, your gratitude journaling, your visualizing stuff, your vision boards, your whatever the case may be. you can do those, but they should be done on top of the foundation. And the foundation is you need to shift your identity. You need to start talking about yourself and your life in a different way. An example is, let's say if you're a smoker, and let's say if you're trying to quit smoking. This is actually a true story. This is how I quit smoking. Many years ago, I think this was over maybe 10 or 11 years ago now, I was a smoker, right? And I tried to quit a bunch of times. You know, it didn't really work. I would always have one. It would always be like, you know, I had this mindset of how long have I gone without one, right? Because my identity was still smoker. And it was, until I shifted my identity, it was always like, how long have I gone without one? How long have I endured without having a cigarette? Because my identity, my default state that I keep subconsciously gravitating back towards is, I'm a smoker. So, you know, let's say if I've gone 2 weeks without one, I view it as an achievement. It's like, wow, I've gone 2 whole weeks without having a cigarette. If I can just keep struggling on, keep pushing forward, maybe I'll make it to 3 weeks. But inevitably, I never did. I would always be pulled back to the default state, which was my identity. It was only when I woke up one morning and said, I am not a smoker. I just made the decision. I just shifted my identity overnight. And I just decided that I'm no longer a smoker. And so every time I would have one of those cravings, right? Because the cravings would still come. I basically would have this conversation with myself where I'd say, oh, that's interesting. I'm noticing that I'm craving a cigarette, but I'm not a smoker anymore. That's no longer me. You know, I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke. And if I was offered one when I was out, you know, with a friend or whatever, I would say, oh no, it's fine. I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker, you know? And it was only when I did that I was able to actually give it up. And so this has been applied to many things in my life. It's when you shift your identity, when you start labeling yourself in a different way, that you actually change your behavior, you change your thoughts, obviously your beliefs, and then the way other people talk about you and think about you, that changes too. And then before you know it, you're acting, thinking, talking, and breathing like the new person that you wanted to be. And so that's really what all manifestation comes down to. You know, if you take one thing away from this video, pick whatever the thing is, whatever thing you're trying to manifest. Narrow it down to who you want to be. So, you know, I'm not going to give a crazy amount of examples. I'll give the example of you want abundance, you want money, because that's the thing most people try and manifest, is either love or money. So instead of focusing on the thing, right, you could say, I want a beachfront villa, you know, on the coast, whatever. That's not really what you want, because that's the end result. What you really want is to be wealthy and abundant and free. So you would start saying, I am a millionaire, or I am wealthy. And you make that your identity from now on. You start thinking it and believing it and telling other people that, you know, even if it's not true at first, because that's the whole point. You need to kind of almost fake it till you make it and pretend a little bit until you've made this shift. But just from now on, don't see it as you know, oh, if I could just manifest this one thing, everything would be fine. Because that's not how millionaires think. Because they're already a millionaire, right? And you need to get into this mindset of, I'm already abundant. And so the only way you do that, at first at least, is you kind of just practice it. You practice the identity shift and just labeling yourself in a different way. Practice telling yourself, I'm an abundant person. I'm a wealthy person. So see how it goes.